Listen to this, a few seconds of heartbreak from a terrifying 911 call.
Kate, tell me where your boyfriend is.
I don't know.
Okay, Kate, listen to me. Is he still in the vehicle or was he outside of the vehicle?
They had made him get outside the vehicle and they started shooting at him.
A woman and her boyfriend had just stopped at a fast food restaurant for a late night snack. But instead away that night, but 3 weeks later, he was arrested in Houston and charged with murder. Now here's the part you won't believe. The judge set his bond at just $50,000. Now they only require about 10% cash. So Holmes was free to go after paying just $5 grand. And the day before his trial began, guess what? He took off. A $50,000 bond for allegedly blowing a man away? Nice work, Judge. Now, the U.S. Marshals have put renewed energy into this case. They're starting all over from the ground up. That's how much they want to grab Glenn Holmes Jr. Well, here are some clues so you can help them do just that. Now, from this angle, you can only see Tricia, but cops have told us that Holmes has the full name Patricia tattooed on his neck. And on his right forearm, there's a comedy and tragedy mask separated by a large cross. Holmes has a long history of drug arrests, and cops believe he could still be in Texas. So if you know where Glenn Holmes Jr. is hiding tonight, you gotta make that call. This is a dangerous guy. 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Up next, you'll go inside the manhunt for a monster.
He had me down on the ground and was hitting me in the sides of my head.
Can you help track down a vicious serial rapist before he strikes again? And later, meet the Board of Education and the man who cops say dominated every session.
Here's Johnny!
Tonight, you can strike a blow for justice and help take him down.
Get ready to go.
If Charlie Feely's on your tail, you're in big trouble. He's one of the U.S. Marshals' elite manhunters down in South Florida. And he makes his living going after the worst of the worst. But now Charlie's facing one of his toughest challenges against one of his most disgusting targets, a serial rapist with no ID except the pain and horror of his violent attacks. I sent John Turchin out to see firsthand what Charlie's up against.
This grainy surveillance video is the only known image of the guy Charlie is hunting down. If you look closely, you can see this man chasing down a young woman. Moments later, he brutally attacked and raped her.
The woman you're about to meet is about as brave as it gets when it comes to telling her story.
As Charlie dissected this case and the two others connected to it, he took me along to meet the women and to try to dig up some new clues. This young woman, the woman seen in the surveillance video, wants to share her story as long as her identity isn't revealed, for fear her attacker will return.
I was walking down South Dixie by the railroad tracks, and I was just talking on the phone, and I turn around and there's someone like running towards me. He like grabbed me and I was still on the phone, so I started screaming at the top of my lungs. And when I wouldn't stop screaming, he bit my nose and felt like I was going in and out of consciousness. So he half like dragged me kind of further back, where he continued to hit me and then proceeded to rape me. I was pretty sure I was gonna die. If you just don't think that you're gonna make it.
An amazing story of survival. To better help us understand what happened, this brave woman agreed to take us to the scene of the attack and walk us through the horrible 15 minutes that changed her life.
Happened right in here. He like had me down on the ground and would just start hitting me in the sides of my head.
At what point do you get from here to there?
About 30 seconds into it, I'm on the ground and he's been hitting me. Then he just kind of picked me up and drugged me over there in the corner. He was talking to me about Roy and asking me if Roy was my roommate, and then asking me where my roommates were from and asked me what my name was.
So the name Roy came out of the clear blue sky to you?
Yeah.
And you probably tried to convince him
that I didn't know a Roy, and finally, I think at the end he believed me that I didn't know a Roy, and he acted scared like he had made a mistake or he had the wrong person, and he got up and ran that way.
Roy. Charlie has not been able to figure out who he is or if he even really exists.
We've worked tirelessly to try to find Roys in the neighborhood who live here, who work here, who have vehicles registered in the area. Just nothing at this point.
But the victim has been able to give Charlie something important. Her memories of the attack helped create this sketch. It's a big clue, but it didn't stop the rapist from attacking again.
John, this is the location of the second attack. 53-year-old white female, smoking a cigarette, sitting on her porch, actually right in that white chair there, minding her own business. The guy comes up from out of nowhere, snatches her off the porch, and drags her all the way over to those bushes across the front lawn. This is her daughter, Heather.
Hey, Heather.
Hi.
I'm John.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. And I'm sorry to hear about your mom, but hopefully our viewers will recognize this guy's sketch and help the marshals here.
I hope so.
Go out and get him.
I hope so.
So painful for Heather. Not only did her mother, Dawn, who could barely walk, endure an attack and rape, but she died 2 weeks later after suffering years of health problems. Heather will never forget that night. Her mother was babysitting so she could go out.
I came home, she's not in her chair, so I go inside and ran around the house looking for her. She's not there. I came back out here screaming, and I found her sitting on the grass right about here. Her pants half pulled down, and all she said to me was, "Heather, he raped me, he raped me." And I mean, there was blood everywhere. He totally disfigured her face. He bit off parts of her body. Her entire lip was gone. The bruises on her neck were just unbelievable. I mean, this guy has no... I don't know. He's an animal. To me, he's an animal.
Animal is right. Charlie describes this attack as the most violent of them all.
It's the first time we've actually seen him introduce a weapon into any of the crimes. He grabs a paint scraper from somewhere in this area and he uses it on the victim. Typically, a rapist won't use a weapon, but if they do, they often find it on scene.
Why is that?
Well, they like the feeling of using their hands, using their mouth, using their body parts against the victim. It just gives them more of a feeling of exhilaration.
It's all about power and control. The attack was so vicious that the rapist nearly cut off Dawn's fingers to take 2 antique rings similar to these. And the rings haven't been found. The third and most recent attack was the most brazen, in daylight and on a busy road.
Our third victim was walking along this very roadside on her way to work. It was about 6:30 to 7:30 in the morning, mid-January, so the sun's just coming up. And right about at this point, he attacks. And as soon as he attacks, he begins to drag her off the roadway and behind these bushes. But as you can see, these bushes don't provide a whole lot of concealment. Immediately, he begins to pound her upper head, her torso. Unfortunately, this victim probably sustained the most head trauma of all the victims, and it's probably because of the concrete pad.
Luckily, she survived the vicious attack, but she can remember very little about it. All Charlie has is the grainy surveillance video from the first rape, the sketch, and the DNA linking all 3 cases. But Charlie is one determined cop. He has made personal promises to the victims that he will bring this predator to justice.
We would really like to take an identity and a name and attach it to this forensic sketch. If we can do that, then we think we can take this suspect from the hunter to the hunted.
Well, here's the sketch of the dangerous creep we need to hunt down tonight. And here's the manhunter himself, Charlie Feely. Charlie, nice to see you again.
Good to see you again, Ms. Walsh.
This is a really dangerous guy. We need to get him off the streets tonight, and there's a new development in this case.
There is. We have a fourth attack, and in this instance, it was 3:30 in the morning. There was a 24-year-old female sleeping alone in her room. Her baby daughter was in the room adjacent to hers, and her mom was also sleeping on the other side of the house. Suspect enters the house through the front door
and takes a piece of glass, wraps it in his hand, proceeds to rape the victim, and then goes out the front door the same way that he came in. This case is a little bit more scary because 8 days later, we think that he returned to one of the back bedrooms. This time the victim heard the movement. She entered the hallway with her handgun this time, and she could look through the door and see that there was a crack in the door and there was somebody inside, but she couldn't see a face. She told me that she stopped frozen solid in her tracks as soon as she stepped into the hallway because she remembered the smell of the suspect.
Wow, he stinks and he's ruthless. Tell us some more about him, some more clues for our viewers.
Well, based on the witness accounts and based on what we've been able to establish at the Behavioral Analysis Unit of the Marshal Service, we really think that this suspect is probably between 20 and 30 years old. He's a Hispanic male, a little bit darker skinned. His friends probably see him as easygoing, maybe even a little bit quiet, except they've seen flashes of his anger. They know that he has a temper. We believe that he's right-handed, and we believe that he smokes as well.
Well, Charlie, we've teamed up with you before. Our viewers helped you catch Paul Marriage, the alleged Thanksgiving Day mass murderer. Good luck on that hunt. This guy needs to be off the streets.
Thanks, Mr. Walsh.
Now, don't forget, the cops think this guy may be Hispanic. We've got Spanish-speaking operators, and I guarantee you that this guy's going to strike again, terrorize another woman, unless somebody stops him. And that somebody might be you.
Coming up.
Here's Johnny! This is all
A cult preacher out of control, and the man who kept the cult under control.
Some of them were beaten so badly they were afraid they were going to die.
Please. It's 3 feet long and half a foot wide, and it was used as an instrument of torture and terror. It was called the Board of Education. And most of the lessons that preacher Tony Alamo wanted beaten into his flock with it were strange at best, very strange. Tonight, Alamo's in prison, paying the price for some of those bizarre beliefs. But the man who served as his enforcer and did the real damage with this board is still out there. And cops say he needs to face some tough justice of his own.
I have to get out of here. Please help me. I can't take this anymore.
Hey! What are you doing? I'm a friend of your sister. Get in! Go, 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 go! Stop! He's gonna drive you to hell!
After making a harrowing escape, a teenager we'll call David made his way to local authorities in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It was October 15, 2008. Detective Chris Deason had heard her share of stories over the years, but nothing quite like this.
And if we did anything he didn't like, he would say, "Oh, John, take care of you," and he would. And nobody was safe from John. Nobody, not me, not my dad, nobody at the compound. It was like John was his enforcer. Every time he would just...
David, slow down. This John was whose enforcer?
Pastor Tony Alamos.
Tony Alamo. It was a name Detective Deason was familiar with. Cult leader, ex-con, televangelist, Alamo had made a name for himself with his compound of devoted followers in Fort Smith. But it was a journey that began 30 years earlier in Hollywood, California. With his wife Susan, they bought TV time and were soon spreading their gospel all over the airwaves.
Jesus is the only way, Jesus. Tell me
by the early 80s, Susan and Tony Alamo had thousands of followers in churches across the country. They were on their way to building a religious empire. But in 1981, Susan was diagnosed with breast cancer. Within months, she was dead. Without Susan around, a dark side of Alamo began to emerge.
Jesus said that greater things than he did would we do in the last days, just before he comes back to earth again. I really believe, without a doubt, that Susie is going to be raised from the dead.
Let the spirit of Susan will her back to life.
And Alamo did everything in his power to make that happen.
Lord, hear our prayer.
He had his followers pray around her 24 hours a day, insisting that if they did, she would be resurrected.
Lord, hear our prayer. Let the spirit of Susan will her back to life. May she walk with the living.
We prayed day and night for her to rise from the dead, and she didn't.
When those days and nights turned into weeks and months, and Susan's body decayed into bones, Alamo turned against his followers.
You failed me. Your spirit obviously isn't strong enough. Go.
Tony blamed the church. Because of us, the Lord wasn't gonna bring her back.
Resigned he'd never have the body and soul of his wife, Alamo told followers Susan would return to him in the body of a younger woman. Prophetic words that eventually led him down a sick path of no return.
And it is the marriage between a man and a woman. It is the bond of marriage. And in the Bible, the age of consent for marriage is puberty.
Listen to the real Tony Alamo as he preaches from a radio broadcast.
Women should be able to be married at 13, 14, 15 years old. And in some cases, if they've menstruated already, 12 years old.
They thought of him as their pastor, this prophet. Everything he said, of course, came from God because they believed God was actually talking to him.
Don't cry. We're married now. It's okay. It's in the Bible. If you dare resist me, I will send you to John Colbeck.
John Colbeck was Alamo's right-hand man and enforcer, and the reason for his rise in the church was sickening. According to ex-members, Colbeck let his own daughter go live with Alamo when she was only 6 years old.
Lord! Amen!
He became a bigwig, as they called him, because John Colbeck was like Tony's man, because after all, he gave up his daughter. Wherever Tony went, John Colbeck was right there with him.
We all knew about John Colbeck, and Pastor Alamo made sure everyone knew what John could do to us.
Why were you digging tunnels?
I wasn't. I was just playing in the dirt.
Oh, you were digging tunnels on the property.
No, I wasn't.
You need a visit with the Board of Education. Here's Johnny!
No! No! Please stop! No, please! No, please stop! Stop! Ah, no! Ah!
There was true fear of Colbeck because of the violence of the beatings. Some of them were beaten so badly they were afraid they were going to die.
You think I like doing this? No! No! I love doing this.
He did this for years.
None of the adults stood up to him?
If they did, they'd get beat too. Or Pastor Alamo would have them beaten for other reasons. Like my dad.
The kitchen sink is leaking again.
But I fixed it.
You know what I think? I think you're trying to sabotage this ministry. Have you made a deal with a plumbing company to rob us?
No, Pastor, no.
Why don't I believe you? You know the drill. David! You must bear witness and no tears.
We weren't allowed to cry. Or Alamo would say we were sympathizing with the devil, and we'd be next. And I was next. But for a different reason. Pastor Alamo made us work reselling food that was donated to the church. Instead of eating it, we'd resell it. And if it had expired, he would make us change the date on the cans and stuff.
What date do we put on these now? I don't know. Harry Potter. What? Yeah, add the glasses. You look just like him. If I was Harry Potter, I'd cast a spell on you.
I guess I shouldn't have said that.
You want to put a spell on me, boy?
But that wasn't even the worst beating. My first one was. When When some kids teased me, I told one of them to drop dead, and the next thing I knew, my dad had pulled me out of our house.
You had parents reporting on children. You had children reporting on parents, spouses on spouses.
Dad, please, Dad! Dad, help! Please, help! Dad, help me! Dad! Dad!
My own father betrayed me. I knew I couldn't live there any longer. And then I got my lucky break. I was home alone, and the phone rang. Hello? It was my sister.
David's sister had left the church several years earlier. They lost touch until her one random phone call. Now David knew that this was his only chance.
Please help me. I can't take this anymore.
What are you doing? Go, 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 go! He's gonna drive you to hell!
You have to stop them before somebody gets killed.
David's statement helped authorities build their case against Alamo. These photos are from their raid on Alamo's compound in Fort Smith on November 18, 2008, a raid that resulted in 21 children being rescued and Alamo being arrested. Alamo was sentenced to 175 years in prison for his sickening behavior with his young wives. And you know what? He deserves every year he got. Now we need to grab the guy accused of beating Alamo's followers into submission, John Colbeck. Colbeck's a big man, 6'4", 280 pounds. He may be traveling with his wife, and they could have 4 children with them who are mixed race Caucasian and African American. They could be hiding out anywhere in the country.
Later tonight, a holiday horror caught on tape. You won't believe what led to this Christmas killing.
A few weeks back, we showed you the story of Janet and Ramon Barreto, the disgusting couple accused in the murder of one of their foster children, a 2-year-old girl. They're also wanted for neglecting and abusing 7 other foster children. Their teenage daughter, Morena, is serving time for her part in the crime. But cops believe her parents fled to Mexico, and we still really need your tips to help bring them to justice. Viewers in Mexico can leave their tips with us toll-free at 001-800-274-6388. Now, that story really touched a lot of you, and you sent your feelings along to us. Many shared the thoughts expressed here by viewer Kim B. I'm so happy to know that all of the small children have been adopted into such loving and caring homes. However, my heart also goes out to Morena Torres. I feel that she was a victim every bit as much as those other young children. Kim, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, we also received many letters about another little girl who touched you in a story from a few weeks back, Marina Preciado. It was the story of how Marina called 911 after cops say her mother's boyfriend, Jesus Chuy Canales, fatally stabbed Marina's mother with a sword. Marina comforted her mother, Lucy, as she spoke with the 911 operator, bravely describing everything that happened until help arrived. We received tips that put Canales in Texas, and cops are following up on those. We also received this update on Marina by a family friend in California. Marina was at my house this week. She really misses her mommy. Marina's a very sweet, shy, and yet funny little girl. I see a lot of her mother, Lucy, in Marina. Facial expressions, mannerisms, and love. She's a very brave little girl, as we all know. Without a doubt, we all know how very brave and strong Marina is. And I want to say hi to that remarkable young girl again tonight. Now, if you want to leave your thoughts to me about tonight's program, please leave them at our website, amw.com. I look forward to reading them. And beyond your comments, we've gotten a lot of feedback from cops around the country on several of our stories. And we want to catch up on some of that news right now. The first case aired 3 weeks ago on what became an emotional evening for Deputy Nichelle Bonnet. She was in our hotline, hoping to get leads on a baffling John Doe case that's been haunting her and her hometown since 2007. It began with the discovery of a body floating in a bayou in Anahuac, Texas. It's a case that literally hit Nichelle close to home.
And it was like, oh my gosh, how did this happen within a mile from where I'm wanting to build my house and raise my kids? The property has been in my family. It was farmed back by my great-grandparents.
As Nichelle watched the broadcast, it was clear that this case was personal.
Just knowing that that's my home and there's a victim there that I still have no clue who it is, I did start to cry, knowing that there's so much history there, and for somebody to come in and dump a body and totally ruin that and wipe that away, it just makes me sick.
We asked you to take a look at the clues, the victim's clothes, the location, and especially a set of zip ties used to restrain the victim. Nichelle thought the zip ties were used by electrical contractors, but you knew better.
We got all this information about the zip ties, that the zip ties are not really used by electricians, that they're used more by people who do air conditioning type work. So we're going to go home and follow up with that. But I also want the viewers to look at the Exxon shirt that he had on, the knot that was in the zip ties. And we know it had to be more than one person, possibly, because the size of the victim.
All the clues are on our website, amw.com. Take a good look and see if you can give Nichelle some more help.
Good evening, America's Most Wanted. May I help you?
Your tips have also put U.S. Marshals closer to catching this creep, Paul Jackson.
He's a slick one, and he's been on the run way too long and under the radar way too long.
Hey, how you doing? You looking for a date?
So how about it?
We told you about how Jackson and his brother Vance Roberts allegedly abducted, tortured, and raped women in Portland, Oregon back in the 80s. In 2006, Vance Roberts turned himself in, but he refused to tell police where his brother was hiding.
Paul Jackson, if you're watching this episode, we're going to find you. It's taken 20 years, but we're not going to stop until you are behind bars.
Your calls to our hotline sent Deputy Moody to Phoenix, Arizona. The tipsters said they'd spotted Jackson several times at a local thrift store.
I was really excited because we haven't had nothing in this case in a long time. All right, everybody, this is Paul Jackson. He's wanted out of Hillsboro, Oregon. That's when I coordinated with the task force down here in Phoenix, and we set up surveillance on the location.
Deputy Moody moved in with local police to grab the man tipsters described. Unfortunately, he was a look-alike, not Jackson. John Moody headed back to Portland empty-handed, but not hopeless.
We're not going to give up. We're still moving forward, and I hope with America's Most Wanted viewers that the right tip is going to come in.
You've called us before, and I know you'll call again. Jackson could still be in Arizona. He's got family there, and he might be driving a white truck. So phone in your tip tonight, 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Next.
That was one of the most painful times of my life to see my son lie dead.
A mother cries for justice. And when you see this video, you'll know why we'll stop at nothing to get it for her.
Last weekend, we were all celebrating the 4th of July, a day to acknowledge all the great freedoms we have in this country. And I hope you had a safe holiday. But Tom Morris is about to introduce you to a family where holidays are no longer happy days. And one tragic reason why was caught on tape.
December 2007, Hartford, Connecticut. 4 surveillance cameras and a microphone mounted inside a carryout called Paul's Ranch House capture the scene. Loud music blares in the background as the cashier takes food orders. It's hard to hear over the music blasting, but the man with the beard orders 2 chili dogs, then steps over here to the pickup area. Meanwhile, 18-year-old O'Shane Green and his brother Leon step up to order food. Now right here, O'Shane briefly walks out of the camera's view. but soon reappears beside his brother Leon at the counter. Neither brother had any idea of what was about to happen to them. The bearded man first shoots O'Shane, then his brother. The shooter is agitated but calm, firing each shot slowly and deliberately. It's almost like he's making a point with his pistol. 2 bullets ended O'Shane Green's life that night. His brother Leon and their friend Wayne Bailey were also wounded. And this wasn't just any night either. Did you notice the date on the tape? It was December 25th, Christmas. Even worse, it was the second time in just 5 years that a holiday would turn to horror and loss for Rania Green.
It's like everything bad happened on the holidays. Because O'Shane died on Christmas night, and he died on September 1st, the Labor Day night.
He was O'Shane's brother Nashawn, a hard-working military veteran and married father of 2. In 2003, Nashawn was shot to death during a random carjacking in Hartford.
That was one of the most painful times of my life to see my son lie dead.
After his big brother was murdered, O'Shane, an honor student, was determined to graduate from college so he'd be able to help financially support Nashawn's 2 children.
He wasn't a kid that would go out there and try to make trouble. He would work. He was a hard-working kid.
O'Shane had even worked that Christmas Day just to make extra money for college. A few hours later, O'Shane was dead. But why?
Well, the thing that actually led to this shooting happened just outside the camera's view. Here's what the surveillance system didn't capture.
When O'Shane briefly walked away from the counter, he went outside to his car for a minute. Now, right here at the doorway is where O'Shane had his first encounter with the man with the beard.
The suspect and his friend exit the store. As they exit the store, Shane's already outside. He's going back into the store. He came out briefly. As he enters the store, there's a bump just at the door, elbow. And after they bumped elbows, there was a brief exchange of words, and the suspect was unhappy because O'Shane wasn't more apologetic, and it escalated from there.
Trying to avoid trouble, O'Shane walked away from the man, went back to the counter, and stood beside his brother Leon. But seconds later, the man walked up and opened fire.
O'Shane was shot once to the abdomen. Leon then was shot once. O'Shane then was shot again. Then he went back, the shooter went back and shot Leon again, and then Wayne Bailey was shot.
Witnesses say the shooter was a Hispanic man in his mid-30s, about 5 foot.
Pain of losing a son. The murder of my 6-year-old son Adam almost 30 years ago. But I can't imagine losing 2, especially to the kind of senseless, random violence that took the Green sons from them. I really want to see that family get justice. They're in my prayers. So we got to help them. Please take another good look at the surveillance tape at amw.com. I know somebody out there has to recognize that coward murderer shooter. If that's you, you got to leave your tip with us tonight. And remember, you can remain anonymous. I guarantee it.
Tonight, the manhunt is on for John Kolbeck, wanted for assault, Paul Jackson, wanted for rape and kidnapping, and accused killer Glenn Holmes Jr. Cops also need information about this man, who is wanted for murder, and this man, the suspect in a series of brutal rapes.
It was just over a year ago when I first met Bill Peters. That's when his hard work and your great tips helped to give a Jane Doe, 85 years young. Bill's still going strong, and he needs your help on another cold case involving another Jane Doe. Let's see if Bill and AMW can go 2 for 2 right here next week.